Shabbat Shalom. As we made our final preparations and walked over to the Kotel, one thoughtful congregant turned to me and asked, "What do people who are non-binary do at the Kotel?" I paused. I had just been wondering about this, and I realized that this question had not occurred to me during any of our prior missions to Israel, yet it now felt urgent and necessary. So while chatting with this congregant, I reached out to a colleague who, at that moment, was leading a birthright trip with non-binary participants. The response from this colleague overwhelmed me and has stayed in the forefront of my mind ever since. "I think it feels like you would have to quiet yourself a little bit to be there," he said. Quiet yourself. Silence part of your identity. Push it off to the side, leave it outside the boundaries of the wall, bury it beneath the surface. Also, you can fit into the clearly defined boxes that we are about to enter. To quiet yourself is an impossible task, and yet it is one that we have all felt obligated to do at certain points. We hide away an aspect of who we are, maybe a part of us that's too vibrant, or maybe it's something we're not proud of, or something we're struggling with. We keep it secret from the world around us because we know that we can't have it displayed front and center. Definitely not then, maybe not ever. This quieted, secret piece of our whole isn't appropriate in that moment. It isn't accepted. It isn't allowed. It isn't the right time, the right place, the right space. We have all had those moments, and remember the feeling of choking back our words, both the ones we know and the ones we haven't yet discovered, because we aren't sure if we or anyone else is ready to hear what we have to say. These quiet times may be as fleeting as a stop at a particular location, or they may last longer. Regardless, when we walk away and rejoin the world with full volume, these silences do not simply disappear from our minds and our bodies. There is a lingering effect to keeping things quiet over and over and over again. Psychologists and medical professionals discuss the stress that keeping secrets, anxieties, and traumas to ourselves puts on our bodies. Rising blood pressure, difficulty falling and staying asleep, even chronic pain can be attributed to holding in that which we should share, what we need to share. In studies around PTSD, doctors have noted changes to brain function and processing that linger from trauma, and it is even more dramatic in cases of unprocessed trauma. Our bodies are screaming because we are not talking. Quieting ourselves is harmful. 6 weeks after I returned from Israel, my passport was stamped again. This time in Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic, where I was traveling along with 14 teens from our synagogue and Temple Israel. Together, we explored the history of the country and how it intersected with that of the Jewish people. On one particular day, after spending the morning in the Jewish quarter, we headed to Terezin. It was here, in this strange cross between a ghetto and a concentration camp, that we confronted the trauma that continues to be a central part of the Jewish story today. In Terezin, we wondered what it would have felt like to live in these barracks, far from homes people had known, unsure of what the future held. We confronted the evils of anti-Semitism before, during, and after World War II. What struck me most was the conversation about what happened to those who left Theresian. Those who went home to homes that were no longer theirs, those who settled with distant relatives in far-off communities. When these survivors tried to tell their stories, they were dismissed. Their audiences, who had not lived through the horrors that the Nazis inflicted, did not understand, could not process, had no language to respond to what they were hearing. So slowly, the survivors stopped speaking. Theresian is a quiet place with a great many untold stories. Not only the ones that the survivors stopped sharing, but also the stories that have yet to be uncovered in the unopened boxes and files sitting in the attics of the homes that are now occupied by everyday Czech people. These stories may never be heard. And if they are never heard, then this trauma can never be processed, unpacked, and sorted out. This healing will never begin. I looked at our teens solemnly walking through Theresian that day, and I wondered if their trauma too has been silenced and hidden away. 3 years ago, we were all literally enclosed in our own homes, turning them into our own personal ghettos. We know that kids today of all ages are struggling to recover. Wandering through Theresian, I wondered if this ghetto triggered memories of the ones the teens had lived in. I'm worried about those teens, and I'm worried about the adults in their lives too. A recent op-ed in the New York Times challenged us to think about whether we are seeing more teens with mental health struggles because of the adults around them who are also struggling with their own mental health. Our teens are struggling, but so are we. We are not role models when it comes to processing trauma and caring for our emotional and mental health. Have we shared our challenges for the past few years with those around us? Have we heard from our kids, our parents, our spouses, our friends, what that experience was for them? Have we helped one another to unpack the anxiety, the fear, the nagging frustration, the sense of panic, the impatient anger, and the general malaise that has settled within us because of that trauma? Or are we just quieting that part of ourselves because we fear that we do not know how to begin to speak, we do not know the right way to respond, and we are not sure if it is safe to share? While the Holocaust survivors quieted themselves in the years after the war, today we are desperate to hear and capture the stories of those who experienced this communal trauma firsthand. We recognize that the horrors they lived may be hard to hear, but they have become an integral part of our Jewish narrative. Their trauma, their story is now our responsibility to hear and to hold. We must listen, no matter how hard it is. We must learn, even knowing that we will never truly be able to grasp the pain and suffering they felt. We must make sure that these terrifying tales are never quieted again. We have made it not merely normal, but essential for Holocaust survivors to tell their stories. Can we do this for ourselves? We must tell our stories. We need to unquiet ourselves and make our world loud and complicated with what we are feeling, whether we do it through art or drama or dance or writing or simply just talking to one another. We need to share. It is too much to hold on in our bodies. We are not meant to. God told us early on in the Torah, it is not good for people to be alone. And it wasn't just physical isolation that God was referring to. When we hold on to our trauma, we are also living on an island of one. In just over a week, we will gather back in our homes for Seder. On Passover, we do not just retell the Exodus, we relive it. As we read in the Haggadah, each of us should feel as though we ourselves have gone out from Egypt. So during our Seder, we speak, we listen, we smell, we taste, all so that we can relive our history and the experience of being bound up, being held back. The explosion of our past trauma at our Seder helps us to uncover the pain and move through it. Retelling our story reminds us to embrace this moment in our history rather than be fearful of it. Passover does more than ask us to share in and relive our trauma. The rituals of the Seder create a safe space for us to open the wounds, uncover the pain, and examine the damage. Even more important, our Seder doesn't end with that moment. No, we are allowed to fully process the trauma, and we are reminded that our story did not end in a moment of scarcity, fleeing, or fear. No, we end our Seder with songs of joy, of hope, with a prayer for healing. When we say, next year in Jerusalem, next year may we all be free, we see the light of possibility ahead of us. And we understand that while we may feel hurt when we process the trauma, we can move forward. We can find a new space to live in that is free, that is whole, and that is holy. Next year in Jerusalem, next year may we all be free.